When you see the kind of activity we are seeing in the Strait, be it the Iran firing on ships, seizing vessels, the U.S. also boarding a number of vessels at this point, and President Trump threatening to shoot small boats that may be laying mines, how volatile is this to you? Do you really see this period we are in right now as being a ceasefire? Can we really call it that?
Well, it's not kinetic in the sense that we're not bombing anything. We're not putting boots on the ground. We're using pressure as much as possible. And there's some tactical events, but those are significantly less impactful for both the Iranians and us. And we're dealing with those as they come up. So the strategy has been very sound: blockade, choke off their money, and then any of the other activity we can use to diminish their military power. So I think it's a sound strategy. We're going to try to outlast them while the world economy adjusts to additional oil. They're going to adjust to having no money. How do they pay their people? How do they feed their people? So I suspect in very near order, they're going to come back to the table and hopefully meet the concessions that the president has asked for.
Admiral, it's great to have you with us. I wonder what you make of this timeline that's been put out. Reportedly, the Washington Post says the Pentagon briefed Congress that it would take 6 months to clear the Strait once fighting ends. I know the president today says we're actively minesweeping, but bring us inside that operation and why it would be so complicated, why it would take so long to remove these mines.
Well, again, I have not seen a report of a mine in the water. I think they're laying out the worst case scenario to give expectations and messaging to everyone. Worst case situation. They find a plethora of mines. They've got to clear them. So that's the worst case situation. But I have yet to see or hear a report of a found mine, a mine being detonated. So again, I think this is the worst case scenario. They're working very proactively to ensure there are no mines in the water. And don't forget, that was one of the initial targets in the strikes, take out their capability. Right. So all those things contribute. But I suspect they want to make sure how bad this could be should that happen.
Well, even if the mines may not be present, just the threat of them obviously is enough to deter the private actors who have to make calculated decisions as to whether or not they're going to risk crew and cargo to try to get through the Strait. Admiral, obviously, due to that hesitation on the part of some in the private sector, we've seen, obviously, the president previously throw out the idea of naval escorts. If we are to see that kind of activity staying halted, the idea that vessels aren't still going through or are going through at a much slower rate as before, and the U.S. were to deem that unsustainable, try to get things flowing more freely, what would that naval operation actually have to entail? How much would we need to ramp up the presence beyond what is there to maintain the blockade?
Well, you put ships and boats in position to block anyone who could approach those. More importantly, systems that could take out drones and missiles, that's kind of dissipated significantly. And then in the mine front, you run other ships through there, ghost ships and hulls that, if hit, have no significant impact. That's the techniques we used in Iraq, clearing the waterways up to Qasr when we did that. And so you could see those same sort of tactics be employed here to give the commercial shippers the security they need to move their product through the straits.
As we see stepped up enforcement now in the blockade, Admiral, the U.S. military says it now has intercepted 2 Iranian oil super tankers that tried to evade the blockade. We've got the very large crude carriers Hedi and Hero 2 now anchored at an Iranian port in the Gulf of Oman. What do these operations include? Once we have U.S. forces on board and we have control of the ship, what happens to the crew and what do we end up doing with the boat?
Well, in most cases, some of these crews on Iranians, they're third nation nationals. So are they cooperating? Can they live on the boat? Do you have the companies come out and replace those people? So there's all sorts of options. I think more important at this case is the options the president still has in his deck. Okay, we know we're shutting down their oil. We can hold these ships. We can take custody of them. We can even take the oil if we need to. Look at what happened in Venezuela. But I think to the regime and the people in Iran, they know how serious they are, evidently, by trying to break the blockade. But they also know the president has more options on hand. How is he going to treat Kharg Island? Is he going to seize it? Is he going to destroy it? Those present long-term dilemmas for the regime. Again, another method and tactic to bring them back to the negotiation table to make concessions.
You just mentioned living on the boat, Admiral, and for U.S. service members, I do wonder at what point you grow concerned about deployment fatigue, knowing that many had been rerouted to the Middle East, deployments extended as we built up our presence there, and obviously as these operations got going. We know another aircraft carrier, the Ford, I believe, is set to be in theater in just a number of days. Do you see that as necessary relief rather than building up the force, just replenishing and allowing a refresh of some of our force that has been positioned there for some time?
It can be either or, but you go back to this delayed deployments. That's what makes our military so amazing. We have all volunteer force who believe in their purpose, believe in their mission, and are willing to take on these sacrifices as their family do. And we've seen that through the history of our country. No other country is able to do that. It's because of our service members. So if they have to extend their deployments, they have to do what's necessary to meet the mission, they do it. And they do it professionally. And most of them are proud to do that because they understand the impact they have and the purpose they serve. And that's why all of us who served and have such a close tie or such a family because of that shared purpose and sacrifice. So I wouldn't put too much in that or word too much, but we'll stay and do the mission.
Yeah, these are remarkable men and women. Admiral, a lot of us first learned about you and learned of your name back in 2017 when it was reported by multiple organizations, including the Washington Post, that you were being considered as a front runner to replace Michael Flynn as President Trump's national security advisor in the first term. I realize, at least according to reports, you had your own reasons to not take that position, but I wonder your thoughts now on the people surrounding the President of the United States who are advising him with regard to this operation. Does he have the right people assembled to give him the right advice?
That's a great question. And again, I wasn't considered. The president asked me, and I told him I was proud and honored, but the timing was not right for me then. So I want to make sure the facts on that straight. But back to the point, the team, and I focus on their policies. I am very encouraged by the policies. The president and his team had the courage to step in and take action against Iran. I've been watching this situation and waiting for someone to do that for decades, and particularly the last 2 decades, where Iran, because no one would react, no one would challenge them, they did whatever they wanted to do to reach the point they had now, where they were on the cusp of a nuclear weapon. They had an extensive missile and drone capability. They had mines. They could control the Gulf. If that had not been challenged now, I think in the not too distant future, we would not have been able to challenge that under nuclear umbrella. So I think that's indicative of the team he has now. And I think some of these strategies employed now, like the blockade, putting up the kill box for all the small boats that may want to shoot or put mines in the water, is indicative of the policies that I support and I feel are appropriate. And they got a lot more up their sleeve. I know we've talked to Sia blockade, but are we sure that no aircraft are coming in and resupplying the Iranians? Are we told them, hey, we'll take Kharg Island. We're not going to blow it, but get everyone off the island, because if they're not, we're going to take them out and really shut down the island completely. So he's still got a lot on his plate. And so far, this team has been very astute in applying those options for the president to meet his strategy and the end objectives we're all looking for.